Any society that fails to harness the energy, creativity of its women is at a huge disadvantage in this modern world. I, Anant Rao, being your host for today's event, wants to extend a warm greeting and good evening to all of you presented here. I hope you all are doing amazing. On behalf of the whole SEMS family, I welcome you all for today's international webinar on the topic Women's Empowerment Through Employment Challenges. And to add our guest of honor and today's speaker, Dr. Manas Behra, it is a great honor to have you with us, sir. We are grateful for your presence. Also, I see quite a number of people are joining us. Before I proceed, let me take a brief moment for the introduction of my organization. Trans Welfare Foundation is a non-profit entity established to work in the area of education, social welfare, women empowerment, skill development, and entrepreneurship, livelihood generation, employability, health, research, culture, international cooperation, sports, environment protection, or any other similar sector. We promote healthy life, a balanced and active community, and strong businesses. Every year, Women's Day is celebrated on March 8th to stand together as a united force and to advance gender equality around the world. However, gender inequality and biases still remains a global concern. To fill the gap, there is a need to empower women through employment. Now, we have Dr. Manas Behra with us to tell us about today's topic. But before proceeding, I would like to give an introduction of Dr. Manas Behra. Dr. Manas Behra is active in teaching and research since last 3 decades. He is presently working as head of PG Department of Political Science in RD Women's University, Bhubaneswar, Odisha. He has more than 30 articles to his credit and chapters in edited volumes. His recent book, Inclusive Development and Good Governance, is the popular one. He has presented papers in 100 seminars. He is General Secretary of Odisha Political Science Association and active in many academic bodies.
Okay, thank you, Anant, and all the organizers here. Thanks for inviting me to deliver a very brief talk on one of the most important challenges in 21st century, that is women empowerment. And that too, we have specified a topic. I have specified the topic that is women empowerment through employment, because this is one of the biggest challenges that you are encountering or engaging right now. Second, women empowerment is a multidimensional concept. That is political empowerment, social empowerment, cultural empowerment, economic empowerment. So, in a brief seminar of or webinar of 1 hour, we cannot elaborate on all the aspects of the topic. That's why the most important that is we are facing today, that is empowerment through employment, that we have chosen. And thanks to the organizers for allowing this topic to be discussed, presented, and deliberated upon. So first thing, I would like to have a conceptual note on women empowerment. We have seen the different waves, first wave, second wave, third wave of feminist movement, from property relations to demand for education to political empowerment through franchise and the movement of the suffragettes in Europe and America. And then there is the radical feminism, socialist feminism, Marxist feminism. All these aspects of different waves of feminism or different theories of feminism point to one thing. There is a common thread among all the movements, that all are trying or fighting for women empowerment or gender equality or gender justice, whatever term we may use. Second is that from a space that is private, that is the domestic space, bringing them to the public space is a great challenge. And the binary between domestic space or private space and public space, the binary, the narratives surrounding those two ideas, that is private space and public space, is a questionable term. I say in the sense that questionable, I say I am not questioning the concept that is private space, it is there, the public space, it is there. But the binary has been created out of the economics of public space and private space. So that is public space is paid one, and private space is an unpaid one. So private space, because it is unpaid, it is the basis, it is the foundation of patriarchy, and the binary has been created from then and continuing till now. So when we'll discuss empowerment through employment, so we have to keep in mind this binary between public space and private space. I want to take all of you to history when there is a great defeat of women as a class, women as a race, or women as a social group by inheritance. That is the matriarchal theory of inheritance or matriarchal law of inheritance was transformed to patriarchal law of inheritance. So during the periods of barbarism, savage or past stage, the middle stage, even in parts of the developed stage, when you entered into different kinds of class relations or property relations, mode of production in agriculture, development of agriculture, what we saw till then, till the stage of latter part, that is part of the upper stage, I am just conceptualizing historical evolution of the defeat of women as a group, as a social group, as a social class. So first, by this law of inheritance, that is matrimonial law of inheritance, replaced by patriarchal law of inheritance. How did it happen? So during earlier period, that is barbaric stage or savage stage of human history, you will see it was not monogamous, it was polygamous. And women were the owners of the resources. Women are the owners of the families. They dictate terms to men. Men were engaged in hunting and other jobs, so women were engaged in agriculture and household jobs. So property was with women. Even women were replacing the heads, the male heads of their clans or tribe or families. So when family was reduced from a group to a single pairing, so this pairing led to a family based on conjugal relationship between men and women, and that laid the basis of the defeat of women as a class, or that laid the basis of the snatching away of the property resources till now held by women as a class. So historically, sociologists, anthropologists, and political scientists define this term, define this period, define this historical transition as the great historical defeat of women. So today, if we have to understand women empowerment through employment or through any other measure, we have to understand the historical dynamics of empowerment and disempowerment. This is the beginning of the disempowerment of women in a property relationship that led to the foundations of the early feudalism. So the property were snatched, made slaves on two warring tribes or clans defeated. One group was defeated and they made slaves, and women were confined to domestic labor, which became unpaid. So unpaid domestic labor became the basis of dominance of men, or what we today define it as a system, that is patriarchy. So patriarchy is a political system, is a power system, is a cultural system, is a religious system, is a social system. So I just give one or two examples from my research. I have done field research in Odisha in 2-3 districts and 2-3 blocks regarding how modernization of women or modernization of society, and from that modernization of women demanded employment. And when educated women entered into employment, how the patriarchal social relationship, cultural system, religious system came into conflict with the employment system. My research, so just I have a brief outline of my research. I have interviewed through a questionnaire method the women who are working in middle paid or low paid jobs like Anganwadi workers, teachers, health workers, etc. They're living in rural areas. So their families were patriarchal families. Their families were patriarchal families. So these families practices patriarchy and its values, social norms like fasting. So fasting is imposed on women. So fasting is a system which we normally define as a religious or cultural system. No, it is not a religious or cultural system. It is pure a patriarchal system imposed on women to weaken women. So you see why women is given the responsibility of observing fasting and to pray for the welfare of the entire family. Why it is not being shared by both men and women? Why it is not being shared by men only? Why it is women only largely? So this question raises the conflict between employed women or women empowered through employment and her practices, that is patriarchal practices. So when I interviewed, they said we have to do both the works, that is domestic work, which is unpaid, and the paid work, that is employment. So when they came return from employment, so they have to again do the job of domestic space, that is unpaid labor. So the entire wages that they are getting as a teacher or as a Anganwadi worker or as a daily laborer. So there is a difference between daily wage earner and these lower middle or middle class employments. I will be deliberating on that. But they said we have to do that. So why you have to do that? Why you cannot question that? Because they're functioning in a rural setback context, rural environment, a rural culture. So that cannot confront this practice of patriarchy. Whereas a woman in an urban setting had the advantage because he has a small family, she has a small family, and there is her husband or children, that is a small family. So she can encounter these patriarchal practices more comfortably in a better manner than her companion in a rural setting. So this I think someone should enter, admit those who are waiting. That is a problem for my screen. Anyway, so Anand can help. So what I just want to explain that a woman in the same job and a woman in the same job in urban areas and in rural areas, because they have different contextual environments, so they confront the patriarchal practices in a different manner. So let us come to directly the question of employment. So why there is a question of employment of women? As you know, women empowerment gets defeated when there is no resources with you. She is completely dependent. She is ousted through unpaid domestic labor from the resources, from the property, and so on. So when she gets employment, there is a unanimity among feminists as well as those who are fighting for women rights or women justice or gender justice all over the world. At one point, they agree that women needs employment. Women should be given employment. It's a right. But what are the problematic area? What are the problems? What are the challenges? First thing, we cannot put all employed women into one mass. That's a class division. The upper class women who are engaged in, suppose, entrepreneur, top industrialists, or top IT jobs, or in managerial posts, they are a class of women, and they don't face these difficulties. Then there is the middle women, or like teachers, professors, bankers, etc. They get a comfortable salary, and they can compromise their domestic labor by employing or by engaging domestic workers. So they can get freedom from that, and they can give time to their labor and to their employability or to their employment, to their job, and they can get comfort or get whatever they want. They are in a comfortable position. So if downwards, that from lower middle jobs or middle jobs or wage earners, daily laborers, these women face a lot of difficulty, and that is a challenge for all of us, because there is a social disempowerment. It is an interesting aspect of employment. So interestingly, these middle sections of employed women, they face more problem even than the lower wage earners. So there is no discrimination in the wage earners, because both the women and women, when they work in the factories or in the agricultural field as daily wage earners, so they enjoy some kind of gender equality with their male persons. It is interesting. But the middle portion, that is lower middle class, very low middle class, those who are engaged in low paid jobs, they face many difficulties, particularly in rural setting. And my argument is that from my research and from my study and observation during periods of globalization after the 90s, particularly, there is a huge disempowerment of women, even though they are employed. Why this is happening? That we'll discuss. First is, there is a general declining material standards of the working class throughout the world after globalization, and more so for women work, because there is no job security, there is no pension scheme, there is no better wage, there is no other benefits like health, education, allowances, which were available earlier to these kinds of work. This is a general feature of globalization, and women are more vulnerable to this trend. Second is there is womenization of labor, of particularly of some kind of labor. I am giving you two examples from Odisha. One is many girls are working in prawn processing factories with a meager wage, that is even 50 rupees or 75 rupees or 80 rupees per day, even that not crossing 5,000 per month. And they are working in a hazardous condition. So their wage is very meager to survive themselves, and not to talk of supporting their family. And they are spending 70% of their monthly wage to their families because they are dependent and they are surviving in inhuman condition. Then let us take the example of garment workers. In garment factories, they are even in Bangladesh, in South Asia, in Sri Lanka, in India, in Odisha, in Tamil Nadu. So there is internal migration in India for these factors, and also there is low-paid jobs without any security. Then there is an emergence of global informal working class. These are called informal workers, and more women are joining in this informal working class. They are being redefined. They are on contractualization, low-paid job, there is no low security jobs. There is no guarantee of job. If they are absent, their wages are cut off. So these things are challenges to employed women who are in the middle sector. I'm just talking of them. Then we'll come to Delhi wage earners. Seasonal migration is happening, and Delhi wage earners are facing much of the difficulty. Then there is the dispossession of women as a social class because of this. Their monthly income is going to their families. Why this is happening? Because the cost of living is higher. So there is a pressure on women to join the regular working class or regular employment. So earlier, working class was fighting for a 8-hour working day, as all of you know, from 1888, 86 in Chicago. So now the concept of 8-hour working day is a myth. So now working day is 32 hours. So you must me, days of 24 hours day, why you are saying 32 hours? Because if you calculate the total working hour of the entire family, both male and female in these classes, that is low paid jobs and daily wage workers, wage earners, and middle class and lower middle class job, you will see they are low paid. Their timing is 12 or 13 or even 14 hours per day. So you just see the traveling. So what is the working hour? You see the girls working in garment factories and in prawn processing factories and in bricklin factories. What is their timing? So there is no timing. The entire working day is fractured, divided, regimented by the owners. So you work for 2-3 hours, you will be paid for that. You work for 3-4 hours, another they will be paid for that. Finally, a women labor is working for 12 to 14 hours per day. And this working hour, extension of working hour, is being neglected in many of the studies, in many of the government policies or public policies today, in framing such policy. Second, now there is another trend in this globalization period, that is digital labor. So there is a artificial division. It was earlier there, but during globalization, particularly in the last decade, there is the growth of digital labor, and there is a great divide between manual labor and non-manual labor. So naturally, there is a growth of manual labor and non-manual labor, and non-manual labor is getting highlighted with a greater prestige, greater status, and that digital labor was employed in IT sector and other areas. They are giving more salary, more status, more prestige than those who are working in fields or factories and other areas like garment factories or whatever the nature of factories or whatever the nature of job. Even in Anganwadis, even in agricultural fields, even in schools, primary schools, high schools, contractual teachers, contractual laborers, they face this kind of difficulties. That is the division between manual labor and non-manual labor, which we now call as digital labor. So question is, Even in IT sector, I'm just giving you another study in IT sector in Bangalore and other areas. There is a huge joining of women or girls in that sector. So that's a positive sign. But we have not studied the another aspect, which is very worrisome for all of us. Should be we should have discussion on that. And there is a growing divorce rate among the young girls and boys who are married in the IT sector. Why this is happening? Because of the work pressure and because of their engagement or confrontation with the patriarchal value. When the boy and girl are going from rural areas or semi-urban areas, they are carrying the baggage of patriarchal values. So when the father and mother or mother-in-law and father-in-law are staying with them, there is a question who will take care of the boy who is whose head is filled with this patriarchal garbage. Is saying, "You are my wife. You are a lady. You are a girl. You should do these domestic jobs." So they are earning the same amount of money, same salary, or same conditions of service in the same IT sector. They are giving same working hours to the factory to earn their money or to the company to earn their money. But the boy is expecting that the girl will do the domestic space, the caring of father and mother, or father-in-law and mother-in-law, or preparing a tea in the evening or in the morning. So this patriarchal value system is not weakened or not diluted, or at least not smashed by the educational system. That we see reflected in the highly educated IT sector, boys and girls who are engaged and getting lakhs of money per month. So, but the patriarchal system works. So, my study shows that why there is a tension between them. So, this employability puts women in more vulnerable position. That is, there is domestic violence, there is domestic discontent, there is a higher rate of divorce. This is one aspect among the upper class or upper middle class people who are engaged in these kinds of jobs. I'm not talking of their service condition, the difficulties, etc. Then another aspect of employability of women, that is which is growing in the supply chain. That is, you take the example Walmart or Reliance or any kind of these big global companies who are ousting these small scale, medium scale shoppers or shops or mini industries by their huge reach. So one thing is this is creating another kind of workers who are engaged in these Walmart or Geo or the big supply chains. So these are largely dominated by women work. They are ill paid. Their service condition is very horrible. Their job security is horrible. But what is happening there? So they are saying we are through stiff competition providing cheaper goods at cheaper prices or qualitative goods at cheaper prices to the customer. All right, you are buying groceries at cheaper prices than the traditional grocery shop. You are buying food items. You are buying electronics. You are buying other items at a cheaper prices from other than normal shops. It's all right. But the family who is getting a benefit of some amount of rupees from that aspect is also losing by investing double in education and in health, in other sectors of the family. So there is no rather more loss than profit if you consider the advantages of being part of the supply chain, global supply chain, by spending less on these items and spending more on other items. So this is a challenge that we need to study. So another problem is what we want to say that if you go to history, we'll see this is a repetition of history. If you, I just want to quote that is also right, women taking husbands to task, the patriarchal disposition of chiefs in workplaces or in families. These are the problems. So why I am saying this, because there is a repetition of history after some 200 or 300. So why this is happening? This is happening because we are in a stage of developed capitalism or neoliberal capital. Capital is in search of new areas of investment. It is in crisis, and again, capital is in search of cheap labor. There is a huge reserve army. So that reserve army is available, and there is no bargaining power of the working class, because in these centers, that is global chains like Geo or Walmart, unionization is not possible. So there is no bargaining power, there is no bargaining strength, there is no public sector. They're completely fragmented private sector, and they have dissembled, rather scattered the parts of production. Somewhere it is being assembled, somewhere it is being produced, somewhere it is being manufactured. If you observe the Chinese chain system, production system, that is totally fragmented in a neoliberal capitalist way. So this global chain system, that is the dominance of multinational corporations in every sector, and now the public sector dominated health sector and education sector are also being privatized, and there is a more and more employment. So there is an illusion among the intellectuals and social scientists that as more and more women are joining the working workforce, that's a good sign. But the negative thing in this factor, or in this more and process of more and more women joining the working sector, joining the labor force, is that they are being casualized, they are being contractualized, and they are being disempowered. So the normal workers were there in the 19th century, in the 20th century, having job security, having pension, having housing facilities, having education facilities for their children, having health facilities, health insurance, etc. They are all being deprived from them. So they are just going to work, getting a meager wage, and spending on this and living on that. And after retirement, or after the energy end of energy of that to produce labor or to produce commodities, so they are in more vulnerable positions as old age citizens. This is happening in the entire Europe, in developed capitalist world, in the old socialist world, as well as in Asian and African countries. So far India is concerned, particularly South Asia, I'll be talking of South Asia. There are 3-4 important features of the developments in these areas. One is there is no huge industrialization in this part of the world, number one. Number two, there is a clear division between manual and non-manual labor, digital, and that is being totally controlled or monopolized by the Western developed nations, even by other nations like China, German, France, America, England, Italy, all these countries. So the old model of Gunder Frank, that is the center periphery model, or the development of underdevelopment, is again in work forcefully in a new manner. That is the danger to women. So when you say women are joining more and more in number, that is in which job, what kind of security? There are 3 factors which I have analyzed, I will be presenting, and I will be expecting to have a discussion on that. First is more and more women are joining not regular working force, not as a regular working force with regular facility. There are more and more women, millions of women are joining in a irregular mode, in a contractual mode, without job security, without other benefits, like a regular worker who is working public sector or private sector. Number one. Number two, the rural women, in semi-urban women, and even class 3 tier cities, of women in these class 3 tier cities, all these women are facing a conflict between their domestic responsibility and public space responsibility. That is making them more vulnerable, because domestic violence is on rise. You see, during COVID time, there is a huge growth in domestic violence. So that is a challenge, and we must contextualize their problem, women's problem, when they are confined to houses during COVID period, from this angle. That will be helpful in understanding their plight or their problems. So when you say we need more and more women in labor force or working class force or as workers in different sectors, that's good. But question is, in what conditions they are going to join? Is this leading to their empowerment or disempowerment? So what I am saying from this observation during last 10 years, particularly under the neoliberal despair, that neoliberal paradigm of development, that this is not an inclusive development, because it excludes women, it exploits them doubly. Their wage is going to their family to support their family, it's all right, but they are being doubly exploited both in private space and the public space. So they are joining in the public space as paid workers, wage earners, has not dismantled the public space private space binary or wall between them. So now I am taking you to the old debate, that is between sex and gender. As we all of have understood, that this is a binary created out of the physical differences between men and women. Even that binary is not pure. That binary is not concrete. That binary finally established because there are variations in that binary of sex between men and women. But out of that, we have created a gender or gender differences, gender roles. That is a social constructed concept. That is gender. So when gender has different dimensions, gender is playing in a different role or different type in Western developed nations, in Asian countries, in African countries, in rural areas, in urban areas. So these interplay or interaction between different roles of gender are conflicting with each other because of neoliberal industrialization, neoliberal development, and neoliberal modernity. Why I am saying neoliberal modernity? Because modernity itself is a broad term. We cannot define modernity by using electronic gadgets, wearing a developed dress or up-to-date dress, or by riding a high-class vehicle, or residing in a very high-class home, or residing in a metropolitan city does not make us modern. So modernity is a question of thinking. If you live in top class one cities in India or in Europe or anywhere in the world, and you practice those patriarchal values, so there is no question of calling you as modern. So that concept has not been challenged in our day-to-day discourses. There are positive signs throughout the world that feminist movements are growing, and working class among women are also working class consciousness, organization, unionism are growing. But there are challenges to it. So one by one, I will discuss one thing. First is let us take the daily wage earners in the agricultural. So I'm just giving you example of how agricultural laborers, women laborers, I'm talking of women laborers, work and engage themselves in a not very conducive, not very supporting environment in the day-to-day life. First is they have to go to work after completing the job of cooking. So job of cooking takes much of time and strain, mental and physical, in the morning. They prepare the food for the elder ones in the home, or children residing in the home. They both, wife and husband, go to agriculture, and there is a gender division. So if the agriculture main laborer or male laborer is getting 250 rupees or 300 rupees per day as a wage for 8 9 hours of work, then women is getting 50 rupees less than that. Some are 20 rupees, some are 50 rupees, some are 70 rupees than that. Though they are putting same time of labor. So there is a patriarchal definition of women labor and men labor as more productive. Men labor as more productive than women laborer in the agriculture. So that is disempowerment of women. She is putting same time of work, whether it is 6 hours, 7 hours, or 8 hours. She is producing the same kinds of service, whether it's a plowing or sewing or cutting, whatever it may be. And then she is being paid lesser than men. This is the first case of disempowerment. Second, after return from home, she is again given the responsibility of private space job, which is unpaid. So there is a unpaid labor, there is a paid labor, and that paid labor is less than the male person. These are two kinds of disempowerment of female workers working in the agriculture. And more horrible is the situation of women working in brick kiln factory. So the condition of brick kiln factories is environmentally hazardous, physically hazardous for women workers, and particularly those women workers who have children of 5 years, less than 5 years. They have to carry the baby in a kind of tied, bound by their sarees, and keeping their baby in the backside of the in their backside in that saree. So the dust and the sun and other hazardous environment is affecting that baby also. So that problem has not been solved by the owners of the brick kiln factories. That is mostly happening when from western part of Odisha, women workers are migrating to Andhra Pradesh, Tamil Nadu, and other developed states in search of jobs, and they're getting jobs in these brick kiln factories. I just gave one or two examples. Second, third, this is I have a survey in two of the blocks in Odisha regarding the health choices of women workers. So I have taken the sample of Anganwadi workers, primary school teachers, health workers, particularly nurses in hospitals, private and government, and those who are residing in rural areas. Suppose they have a health problem. So what happened? It's a kind of disempowerment, even though they're employed. We're talking of employed women and their empowerment through employed. So when there is a health problem for a male person, he can go independently if there is a minor health issue. If it is a major health issue, all the male members and female members, they are much worried. They will take to the nearby hospital or a hospital. In rural areas, there are hospitals, but there are no doctors available in all those hospitals. Even there is not a pharmacist. But when there is an issue of health for women, that is, I'm talking of employed women. So she has to be dependent. Though she is employed, though she is educated, though she can go alone, but her family will not allow him in the rural setting. That you have to be escorted by a male person, known male person from your family or cousin or whatever. And they have to hire a vehicle, auto rickshaw, or car, or whatever it may be, or take the help of bike of a son or brother or husband. And if he is not available, he is not ready, he is not giving time for him, then that health hazard is neglected, despite that women is able to earn for the family. So this is a interesting study. I have, though there are changes in the conceptions, attitudes of women in rural areas right now because of the road connectivity, because of the consciousness, because of the role of media, because of the availability of health services nearby. So all these factors have changed, but that is changing very slowly, and that is not affecting the disempowerment of these employed women so far their health is concerned. That is a very important issue. Then the class division that I was talking, I'm taking towards that. What is the concept of class among women or in women, class in women? We can call it, or class among women. So women are engaged in different, as I have elaborately explained, whether in rural areas, whether in urban areas, whether in migrating workers, seasonal migrations, or permanent migrations. So there is a push and pull factor. There is a availability of job, that is a pull factor, and there is the domestic pressure to go for jobs, that is a push factor. So these factors interplay with each other, overplay with each other, and they drag women. Why I am using the term deliberately, drag women into an unfriendly environment where women is disempowered through employment. That is very interesting. So what I am trying to establish is this kind of job without a security, without a proper wage, without a good environment, friendly environment, is really disempowering women in these sectors. I'm not talking of women who is a bank manager, who is a university professor, who is an entrepreneur, who is a owner of a big industry, or a general manager, or a top rank holder in the IT industry, or a science institute, or whatever it may. Those are earning money and those are decision-making power. But they're less than 1% of the total working women population. Even maybe state-wise, there are huge differences. If I talk of my state, that is Odisha, they are less than 0.5%, less than half of the percentage of the total working women. Then there is a casualization of it. Suppose you talk of teachers. So all teachers are not, you cannot put all teachers into one box. There are casualization. There is contractual teachers, there are district level teachers, there are private aided school teachers, there are completely private school teachers, there are government school teachers who are not getting 100% salary. There is a question of block grant, they're getting 60%, they're getting 40%. So there is a huge division for which they are not being able to unite. This is they are not being able to unite themselves or go for a union. So this has been the tactics of the neoliberal dispensation or theory or paradigm, that not to unite the women workers, so their voices can be heard in a united manner or a powerful or forceful manner. Those who are in influence. First, it is state. Let us come to the role of the state. State does not have a pro-women policy, though there are so many declarations like self-help groups. There are so many positive examples. There are so many positive results. But as a policy, state has not been able to ensure a good working condition. The state is promoting industry. That is prawn industry, garment industry, brick industry. They are giving loan. The owners are giving are being given loans by the state. So there must be a condition that if you are employing women as workers, you must have these kinds of facilities. Number one. Then civil society. As civil society is largely patriarchal, it is insensitive to the needs of women in employment, particularly in middle class employment, lower middle class employment, and daily wage earners in urban areas or rural areas, industry or agriculture field or other. So, civil society does not have a united voice regarding these issues. Third is women organization. So, women's organizations are fragmented. So, women organizations operating in metropolitan cities, they have a problem. I'm just giving an example from my city. There is a union of domestic workers. Those women who are working at domestic helps in different families, middle class families, upper middle class families, even lower middle class families, where there are working women. So, because they are unable to give time to the domestic work, that is cleaning, cooking, or cleaning utensils or clothes, so they are employing these domestic helps. So, domestic helps are the union, and these women are opposing their union. So, women are fragmented in terms of class, because these women belongs to a different category and those women belong to a different category. So this division in terms of their preference conditioned by their labor is leading to a division among the women. This is just one example. Then there are problems different from rural women, different from urban women, different from semi-urban women. Then the tribal women, the Dalit women. Then in terms of caste division, then in terms of regional division, in terms of economic division. So there are various dimensions to the division of women. Even if there are common problems, they cannot be united. This is a problem with women's organization. Fourth is those who are powerful voices among women, active voices, spearheading movements in different parts of the world, different parts of the country, different parts of the state. They are voicing, suppose they are talking of climate change. Climate change is affecting women. This is number one. But when we talk of climate change, and many women leaders talk of climate change, they don't talk of fisher women folk, those who are in the fishing community, and they are being affected any kind of climate change, like whether it is a flood or whether it is a cyclone. Women are first affected and seriously affected. But those who are talking of climate change, or those who are spearheading a movement in climate change, they don't take into account the plight of these women who are victims first in the natural disasters in sea areas, areas surrounded by sea, that is coastal areas. So these are specific issues that I pointed out in different parts in my speech. So if you can divide, just coming to an end, so I can say, first thing, this is a myth that women are empowered through what kind of employment, which employment, what are the benefits in employment, what are the conditions of employment, what are the securities of employment. This must be addressed so far, particularly in women empowerment. Number one. Number two, state must be sensitive. And how it can be sensitive? I must say there must be more representation of women, that is common women, those who are being exploited, disempowered as a group in legislative body, whether it is state legislature or parliament in India or anywhere in the world, except 2-3 countries like Uganda, Sweden, and some Latin American countries. The women representation in parliament is hovering around 10 to 14 or 15%. This is horrible. You cannot make 50% of the population unrepresented and you say our system is a democratic system. No, we cannot say that. We cannot have a democratic system bypassing or marginalizing these 50% of women from the system. When there is 73rd Amendment Bill and 74th Amendment Bill, and in Odisha, the ex-chief minister who was an old leader, Biju Patnaik, introduced 33% of reservation before the coming of 73rd Amendment Act. There are hue and cry from a patriarchal voices that why these women who are confined to their space, how can they manage the panchayats, Jilla panchayats and Taluka panchayats? But they managed it very well. There is no fall of the panchayat system after coming of women in terms of 50%. So that is the experience. They managed it very well, better than men. So now they are also managing very well these uneducated, less educated, common rural women who were being denigrated by patriarchal forces during that period, that the entire system is political, vote mobilization, etc., etc. So what happened? Finally, from 94 till now, the panchayats are being run very well. I'm saying very well in the sense that they are being run equally as it was equally being run by male persons before the introduction of reservation for women. So if the policy making body, highest policy making body, is not represented by women, that cannot be made sensitive to women. That is a patriarchal, this fatherly attitude that they are my women, I must look after them. No, this is a very dangerous, undemocratic tendency growing in and around the world after neoliberal globalization. That's why what I'm saying, the state, the civil society. Unless there are democratic, peaceful women movements on specific women issues, and they are made to come under an umbrella organization. We have an umbrella organization in India and other countries also, with common threads of their demands or common demands or common plights and demands on the basis of those plights, then we cannot influence civil society to influence the state. So state civil society engagement is now being dominated by the state, not by the civil society. This is not good for a successful gender-based gendering of democracy. So democracy needs to be gendered, and these employment possibilities should not be eulogized as empowerment of women. That's what I want to say. Then we can have a larger discussion on these topics. Okay. Thank you for giving me a patient hearing. Thank you all.
What a wonderful knowledge given by you, sir. I hope our audience learned many new things from this session. Once again, I would like to thank you for joining us and sharing your experience, your precious time and knowledge with us. Sir, there are few questions which our audience want to be answered. So with your permission, shall we?
Yes.
So the first question is, despite of
Yes.
having employed, why women still struggle to be independent, especially in decision making?
Yes, definitely. That is a good question. Thanks for the question, because my phone is in horizontal mode, so I cannot see the questions rightly. So question is, it's not a question of employed. So patriarchal or patriarchy, patriarchal values are in operations. So they are compelled to work in that system. So they have to do the double job, and they are being employed does not help in being their empowerment and in their liberation. So actually, their employment definitely leads to kind of liberation, but still they are not totally liberated so far as patriarchal value system or cultural system is concerned. That's why, despite being employed, they are not being independent, because the patriarchy, patriarchal family, patriarchal society, patriarchal school system, patriarchal university system, patriarchal culture, patriarchal public places, everywhere they are being marginalized, despite being employed and earning money and giving it to their family and contributing to society.
So there is another question. Why educated women are oftentimes facing social hurdles?
The dowry system. Even an employed woman is being asked by their in-laws to get dowry. This is horrible. So, question is, how do we practice the laws? Are there, anti-dowry laws are there, but they are operating in a system, that is cultural system, social system, and economic system. The women does not have the courage to challenge that. Support. There is a concept that pati parameswara. Even if pati bites him, scolds him, misbehaves him, then he is considered as the parameswara. This social value we have ingrained in the women, as well as other women who are their family members. So nobody is taking. There are changes. There has been great changes. So that's why I said, even if the divorce rate is high, that's a positive side there. Women is asserting. That's why there is a higher divorce. So women was come forward, and the education system where both men and women are teaching, they should challenge this patriarchy. They should smash this patriarchal value. Otherwise, women, even if they are employed, they cannot face the life or cannot challenge the patriarchal part.
So, what are some of your personal experience or reasons that motivated you to think about women empowerment?
So that's an interesting question. So I have been brought up in a background in my family, in my peers, where I was motivated to be sensitive to the needs of women, to the plights of women. Then I got education from these writings of the feminist movement, whether it is Sid Webb or John Stuart Mill, or Mary Wollstonecraft or Simon de Beauvoir. So they have influenced me. through their writings to a lot, even Alexander Kollontai and others who have influenced the course of women movement in the world. So, and Ma Romadevi was a great freedom fighter whose name my university was named. That is my Romadevi Women's University. She dedicated all her gold and other ornaments to Mahatma Gandhi in the salt movement for the cause of national freedom. So she liberated herself from the clutches of the family and joined the freedom movement. So these are historical examples as well as the writings and philosophy and my personal family background that influenced me lot to be sensitive to these issues and to have a opinion on these issues.
Sir, what advice do you have for people who want to do more for empowering of women?
Yes. What we need today, not only women, men must be sensitive to the needs of women, and there must be gender equality. Men should share the responsibility to the women, and when particularly at the state level. But this is not working very well. Though there are very positive signs throughout the world that women are sharing the responsibilities of men are sharing the responsibility of women. So we need to do more for women inside the private space as well as in the public space. So that will help a lot to build a society which is really inclusive.
Thank you, sir, for answering these questions. Again, thank you all for attending today's webinar. And if you have any additional questions, you can contact us by email or telephone. We are happy to provide additional support to you. Thank you so much for cooperation. I, Anant Rao, your host for the evening, signing off. Have a wonderful evening. Thank you everyone for joining us.
Thank you, Anant, and thank all of you for giving this wonderful opportunity to have a sharing talk with everybody. Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Thank you so much.